Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Luke, and this is not a DC fandom video. Um, we'll have one about the Batman trailer probably tomorrow. Um, I have some Wonder Woman stuff, some Suicide Squad stuff, whatever. This we're doing DC fandom stuff all this week, but I wanted to take some time to I talk about something else this week. Early on in my podcast, links in the description below, we talked about the I think it was 1994, the miniseries based on Stephen King's The Stand. I just finished reading the book, and I wanted to just take some time to talk about the book, the original miniseries, and then the one that's coming out later this year. Um, so yeah, the original miniseries was 4 parts. Each part was 90 minutes long, so a total about 6 hours long, and also written by Stephen King. The book is written by Stephen King. There's this picture right there. Um, and so it's interesting to sort of look at that miniseries and look at this book and see kind of the differences between that because it's written by the same dude. Um, and I think the main difference that comes off is that I think I said this in the podcast, but um, the original miniseries was rushed, even though it's 6 hours long. This is the uncut version. Um, the uncut version of this book is 1,153 pages. Can you see that right there? 1153. Oh, it's kind of fuzzy, but 1153. Take my word for it. Um, and so yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this book that was kind of cut out, and it seems like in the miniseries they're just running from one thing to another because they have to stay caught up with the book. And obviously another thing is that there's things you can do in a novel that you can't do in a TV series. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm sure you can imagine what those things are. Um, so they had to work their way around that as well. Um, and like I said in the podcast, most of the actors in the miniseries were good, especially now with the book. I think that Molly Ringwald as Franny Goldsmith was really good, especially after reading the book. Probably the perfect casting for that role. Um, what Randall Flagg was good. I don't remember the guy's name who played Randall Flagg, but he was perfect. Um, yeah, and so I talked about the miniseries a lot already in the podcast, so I'm going to move on just to talking about the book now. Um, so originally, I think the book was released in I'm going to say 1975. No, hang on. Let's go with 78. Um, but the publishing company wanted to sell this novel, the book, for um, yeah. So he wrote this whole 1,100 pages in the late 1970s, and but the publication company wanted to sell it for $12. About what that was what the price they wanted to sell it for, and they couldn't. That back in the 70s, you couldn't apparently sell this much of a book for only $12, and so the publication company cut about I think 400 or 500 pages from it, and so the original version that was released was only about 800 pages long. But then in I think it was 91, uh, King restored 400 of those pages, and that's this version that we have right here. And I don't know specifically what was added or taken away. To my understanding, it was a couple of pages here, a couple paragraphs there, just to kind of fill in between the things. Um, Even with those pages restored, I feel like, especially, I want to say, towards the second quarter of the book, a lot of it seems to just be jumping around and kind of skipping a lot of information. It feels like we skipped because there's a part where we spent a lot of time with Stu and Franny and Harold and Glenn and their group, and we spent a lot of time with them, and then we cut back to Larry's group, and there's like 12 more people there that we didn't even meet. They just kind of joined between the pages, and so there's that part kind of seems like there's something missing. Um, even though this book is huge, it feels like there's something still that's missing from that section. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Oh, I didn't write a script for this, so I'm just kind of going off the top of my head. I want to talk for 10 minutes, so there's at least 5 more minutes of this. Um, let's see. Yeah, I really liked the book. If it was described as the Lord of the Rings in modern day, and that's absolutely a good description of it. I would also say it's kind of a cross between the Book of Revelation and the Lord of the Rings. So if you like those things, you definitely dig this. Um, Specifically, I really like the way that the characterization of Larry Underwood. I thought he was really good in the book. He is I don't want to say he's a rock star. He's a musician, and he released his first number one hit, his first hit single, right before the virus hit. So this book, I didn't even talk about that yet. This book is about a virus that wipes out 94% of the world's population. 99.4, not 94, 99.4, which is in 1970. And I did the math. It was like a lot of people. Um, Whatever. The world's population in 1970, 90, whatever. You can do the math. I gave you the numbers, okay? Figure it out. Um, yeah, and so it's about a virus, and then the virus wipes out most of the people, but there are survivors, and they kind of group behind these two people. One of them is Mother Abigail. She is a prophetess, and the other is Randall Flagg, who is a demon from hell. And I'll get back to Larry in a second. But another thing that I really liked about this is that we do spend some time in Las Vegas with Randall Flagg's group, specifically towards like the last third of the book. A lot of that time is devoted to that. And I really like it because, well, during the podcast, I talked about that, and it was in towards the end of the last episode of our this stand four-parter. I talked about that a little bit, but we do get to spend some time with Randall Flagg and his group, and really most of them are just normal people, and I like that a lot because in the miniseries they're just crazy people. There's like the Rat King, Trash Can Man, um, Julie Lowry, these crazy people. It's like, why would anybody want to live here with these people? And in the book, those crazy people are still there, but a lot of those people are just a lot of people that are in Las Vegas with Randall Flagg are just regular people, and I like that a lot. It sort of makes it more grounded. I don't know if Stephen King can ever be described as grounded or realistic, but it makes it more believable, plausible, I guess. Um, yeah, so anyway, back to Larry. I really like the way he's described in the book. Yeah, he released his first hit single, and he doesn't really know how to handle the fame, and so he kind of gets mixed up with a lot of drugs and trouble and stuff like that. And so he goes to New York with his mom to kind of just wait it out, and that's when the virus hits. And yeah, and then so a lot of the book he's kind of struggling with his own morality, I guess. The phrase that keeps coming up is that he isn't a nice guy, and so he keeps kind of wrestling with that, and I really like that in this book. Probably my favorite character, Larry. Um, I really like also in this book Kojak. Surprisingly, he's really cool. Probably my favorite dog in all of literature. Um, yeah, he's a pretty dope dog, Kojak. Is he better than Brandy from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? I don't know. My researchers are on that right now. We'll get back to you with it shortly. Um, yeah. Another thing that I don't understand is this cover. Yeah, you can see it. It's the cover with this guy who caught a bullet in his mouth. I don't know. I read all the book, and there's nothing with any guy catching a bullet in his mouth. So I don't know what that is at all. So yeah, I don't know. Oh, another thing. Um, let's see if I can find one. No, I don't want to show that one. This book has some pictures. I don't even know who drew them, but every once in a while there's a picture. if I can find one. There aren't very many, but they're very, very cool. Let me see if I can get one. Come on. I know there was one towards the end. Here we go. Right there. It's very, very cool. They're illustrated pictures. I don't even know who drew them. Does it say in the front cover in the acknowledgments or whatever? All rights reserved, publication, fiction, limitation of space. It does not. Does it say it in the back? Acknowledgments, blah, 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 blah. No, it does not. That sucks. Yeah, I don't know who did the art, but it's really fantastic. And yeah, so I talked about 10 minutes already, so now I'm going to look forward. I don't know, to talk about the miniseries that comes out later this year. Stephen King said that he was going to change the ending, and we talked about that in the podcast, and we weren't really sure what that meant. And so, but after reading this book, I think I understand what he means. After the final confrontation with Flag in Las Vegas, there's still about like 75 pages left, and it just kind of drags on. And so if you want to change that part, I'm totally okay with that. Everything before that, don't change it. Change the like the epilogue, I think. If you want to change that, go for it. Yeah, because Stephen King watches this, obviously. Yeah, so change that. The casting is very, very, very interesting. We have James Marsden as Stu Redman, and I mentioned this before on the podcast, but the guy who plays Stu in the '90s version is not very good. He's only ever angry, and he only does that, and so I don't really like that. But James Marsden was in the X-Men, Enchanted. Most recently, he was in the Sonic movie. So yeah, he's fine. I'm sure he's more of a comedy guy, but sure, whatever, man. Knock yourself out. Um, Mother Abigail. This is the one that's like, uh, that I don't know how to describe it, but Mother Abigail is played by Whoopi Goldberg. And I don't know. I feel like you could have just got an unknown actress to do it, and it would have been better because whenever you cast someone like Whoopi Goldberg, there's always this sort of everybody already knows about Whoopi Goldberg, and so we all have our opinions of her. So when we see her, so those opinions and I don't know, those opinions sort of interfere with the way we interpret her characters in movies or TV shows in this case. So I think that because everyone has such a strong opinion on her, whether it's good or ill, that's gonna kind of determine the way you see this character in this thing, The Stand. And so I think it would have been better just to cast an unknown, and then just start with a clean slate. Um, Randall Flagg, I believe it's Alexander Skarsgård who's playing Randall Flagg, brother to the guy who played Pennywise. I don't remember his name, but the Skarsgård family, they're all actors. Um, they're all actors. Yeah. So the miniseries is going to be a 10-parter. Every episode is an hour long, approximately. That makes a lot more sense. But originally, I think um, before it was decided to be a miniseries, Ben Affleck was signed on to do a trilogy based on this book, and I think that's like the perfect way to do it because it's split into 3 sections. I'm going to go into that, and then I'm going to end the video. Basically, the first was about the virus, and then it would kind of end with the first was kind of about the virus wiping out the nation, wiping out the world, really, and then the survivors kind of grouping together and I think it would end with them going to Boulder and meeting Mother Abigail. Part 2 is about them trying to set up the zone, and that would probably end with Harold and Nadine leaving. And then part 3, the beginning of it is sort of set in Las Vegas with Randall Flagg, and then it would end obviously with the end of the book, because that's the end. Yeah, I think that would be probably the best way to tell this story, would be a trilogy of movies. They'd have to be long movies, probably like 2.5, 3 hours long, but I think that would be like the best way to do it. But a 10 episode miniseries isn't bad. Um, I'm looking forward to it, and I hope it's good. That's all that I had on the Stand, I think. Is it my favorite? It's probably my second favorite Stephen King novel. After reading it now, my favorite is obviously It. Obviously, you didn't know that. Why am I say obviously? My favorite's probably It, because this novel is a lot more intense than It, especially the first, I would say, 300 to 500 pages are very intense. But it's more rewarding in the end. So if you're into sort of post-apocalyptic fantasy, dark horror stuff, then you should definitely check this out. But yeah, we'll probably be. We already have some videos about DC Fandom up, and we'll probably have more later this week. Also hoping to get a Bill and Ted review out when that movie comes out, as soon as I can see it. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that. Links to both podcasts in the description, Facebook group, Instagram page, Patreon if you want to contribute. All that stuff, all that good stuff's down there, so check it out. Until next time, peace out, brothers.